Hello, I'm Dori Nando. You can catch up with all the fun on the Cosmopolitan Mix and on all our shows via podcast. Just go to My Joy Online podcast and search for your favorite show and relive those moments all over again. Only on Joy 99.7 FM, radio for discerning listeners.
Super Hits Radio, Joy 99.7.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. In 2005, in the premises of Love FM in Kumasi, I had just finished a program in the night, and a lady placed a call to me. What was her problem? This was a medical student at the KNUST. Her dad had impregnated her and was still demanding sex. Yesterday, a father looked in the eye of his 16-year-old girl and had a debate with investigators about how many times he had had sex with her. 2 abortions at age 16. Just not long ago, a small girl, about 6 or so, was defiled by a 42-year-old painter here at Sotum in Accra. What am I telling you? We want you today to tell us on this show how many of such or similar situations you are aware of, and how much of help have the victims, the survivors, received. What has happened to the violators? So our girls are in peril. They are preyed on, betrayed, and abused. The Ghana Health Service statistics, that is those who reported to the hospital, 110,000 girls were impregnated in 2020 only. That's for those who reported to the hospital. Over 500,000 girls were impregnated between 2016 and 2020. How are we helping the abused? How are we punishing the abusers? How do we end the abuse? So, today on our special edition, we are revealing, confronting the darkness of gender violence in Ghana to see how far we can go. So join us. It's a special edition, so you're welcome. We'll be right back to deal with the vexed matters. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. So it's our special edition. As you know, every month we try to take one issue, focus on it, and deal with it exhaustively. Not paying attention to all the mundane stuff, the politics in town. So we bring you a discussion on gender violence, so to speak. We would like you to join us by sending your messages, particularly of stories that you know about abuse within the system. And what help are you aware is available, if any? Do you think that violators, perpetrators are punished? And why not? Thank you. So join us from now. In due course, we may actually give you the opportunity to call us, and if you have a question or some contribution, also make them. Our guest this morning, Professor Akosia Keseboa Dakwa, a sociologist, University of Ghana. Good morning. Thank you so very much for making time to join us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great. Also here in the studio is Chief Superintendent Owusua Treme. She's the director of DOSU. Thank you for coming. Joining us via Zoom are Professor Kwejo Apieje-Tua, who is at the School of Law, University of Ghana. Dr. Ako Akoto Ampao is a medical director. I'll tell you a bit more about him in the course of the show. And Lamnatu Adam is executive director of the NGO Songtaba, based in the northern region of Ghana and serving most of the regions there. Gentlemen and lady joining us via Zoom, thank you so very much for making the time to be with us.
Pleasure.
Great. All right, so we start with a special newspaper review. So you know, you have a set of Ghanaians who have hijacked the space, and they comment on everything from archaeology to zoology. Today, we are fortunate to have people you hardly, hear on the media or in the media, helping us to pick some of the topical issues in the course of the week to, as it were, examine them briefly. So let's start with Lamnatu Adam, Executive Director of Songtaba. What's the issue that caught your attention the most in the course of the week, and what do you have to say about it?
Good morning, Samson, and good morning, my other panelists and those who are listening and viewing. Let me say that I want to commend you, Samson, and your team for dedicating today to look at issues of sexual and gender-based violence amidst other issues that you've brought on board. I'm particularly worried about the fact that this year alone, we've had about 4 coups, within West Africa. We've had 2 military takeovers in Mali. There was a failed attempt also in Niger, and now we have Guinea. It is also recommending to say that ECOWAS has condemned the fact that there's this that's happening. A lot of stakeholders have condemned it. And quite recently, I think about 2 days or so, His Excellency, the President, has also issued, I think he tweeted around the issue. I'm particularly worried because we all know when there's instability, the effect it has on our economy. And for us who are women's rights advocates, we are more concerned about the effects on women and children. It is not new to us that in times of instability, women and girls especially suffer the most. And we have had cases of sexual harassment and all other, sexual gender-based violations that you can think about in times of insecurity. And so for us, we have always said that no matter how a nation is said to have problems, coup has never been an alternative. But if you look at the issue around Guinea, the fact that they have a 3-term for a president, if you look at the survey that CDD did and the Afrobarometer, it shows that clearly more than 77%, of the people in Guinea do not want a 3rd term. And so clearly, I think that ECOWAS should look at this and advise its countries to probably relook at their constitutions and what it states. And then also, if you listen to what the survey also indicates, that there have been some hardship in the country and the level of corruption has been high. But all the same, like I have said, that in any case, coup should not always be the answer. And I am hoping that the recommendations that ECOWAS has, spelled out, the military coup or takeovers will look at it, and bring back peace, in the country. Within the week, apart from this, I think that we as Net or Network for Women's Rights in Ghana, we have also championed issues surrounding the death of women and girls. You read in the newspapers, in social media about the numerous deaths and that women, especially women who have either threatened to divorce, even for women who want to stay in marriage, have undergone. And you've also read about missing people who are mostly women. And I think this has caught our attention, or my attention, for this week. And I think that it is good that we talk about it, that there's a growing fear for women, because if the home is no longer a safe place for a woman, then where else can we consider for it to be safe? Thank you.
Let me go to Professor Pierre Chia and the ECOWAS leaders, superintended by President Akufo-Addo, met on Thursday and they issued a statement. Among others, they said they expressed deep concern over the political development in the Republic of Guinea following the coup d'etat of the September 5, 2021, and their consequences for regional peace and stability. It reaffirms its unreserved opposition to any political change by unconstitutional means and condemns in the strongest terms this coup. Lamnatu says this is condemnable. There should never be justification for a coup. Was Alpha Condé not involved in a coup when he decided to do what he did to the constitution so he could stay in power? I'm asking that because I know that this is the subject that you want to talk about for the news review segment.
Well, thank you very much, Samson. I think I commend the comments made by Lamnatu Adam on this subject. And it couldn't escape me because as an international law and human rights person, it certainly caught my attention. Now, it's interesting how the West African ECOWAS put the whole media communique that came out, saying that what's happened as a coup d'etat is unconstitutional. However, they failed to recognize that the third termism by Alpha Condé was equally unconstitutional. Because if you look at the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance, it spells out 5 grounds for unconstitutional changes in government. First is where there's a coup d'etat. Second, where there is mercenary action to overthrow a government. Third, where there is rebel activity. Fourth, where a government loses elections and refuses to concede and leave office. And fifth, where there is a doctrine of the constitution to allow for extended stay in office. And so clearly, Alpha Condé fell foul of the fifth one. And there has been a trend in Africa where so far we have about 28 attempts by African states to doctor their constitutions to allow for extended terms. 16 or 17 of them have succeeded. And even though the AU Constitutive Act is clear on this, even though we have the Lomé Declaration on unconstitutional changes in government, even though in some cases the AU has borrowed from the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance, it's not yet enforced, but they borrowed from provisions of it to apply to some unconstitutional changes in government. So I don't know why we are indirectly or directly recognizing third termism. But the moment there is a coup d'etat, then African leaders, whether AU, ECOWAS, and so on, will then begin to flex their muscles. So let's go back to the ECOWAS. It tried to come up with a law that will limit third termism or control it or abolish it. But it wasn't successful. Why? Because some heads of state like Jammeh and so on tried to kick against it. And since then, no effort has been made to change it. Now the trend is becoming worrisome because when you look at periods when unconstitutional changes in government was mainly through coup d'etat, that is in the 60s and 70s, it was about 4 coup d'etat every year. But if we have this year alone 4 coup d'etat and all happening in West Africa, it's a cause for concern. And so there's a likelihood that it may go beyond the 4 by the end of the year. And so I think it's important that African states respect the rules they have laid themselves in the Constitutive Act of the AU, which says what should be done to a head of state or to a government that comes to pass through unconstitutional means. The regular condemnation, and then we go to them and talk to them and allow them to return the government to return to constitutional rule, whereby the coup makers also take part. It's also problematic. If there's no opportunity for change of government and it's true coup d'etat, the coup makers should not be made to take part in the elections. And civil society should be given an active role to play in this. I hope going forward something will be done so that the liberal democracies that are re-emerging on the African continent can be kept to ensure that the people's will and their right to self-determination will be respected. Thank you.
Interesting thoughts there. And I pay attention particularly to what you say have been attempts at the level of ECOWAS to prescribe third termism. And that guys like Jammeh were standing in the way. You're saying that Jammeh, all say 15 members, Jammeh alone could, cause the undoing of it? How about AU?
It's not necessarily Jammeh alone. Of course, Jammeh alone, if you just voting, then you can say that majority will carry the vote.
Right.
But it is an idea that we all African leaders seem to enjoy. And it takes us back to the 60s when African socialism came into place and one-party system was in place. And life presidency, no partyism, no civil society activism was the order of the day. That was a trend, and it seems to be repeating itself. And so that makes it very, very concerning. And it also brings into question whether the Western style of democracy is really what will work for Africa. And I think that we need to re-examine that question, because to jettison completely our traditional political systems and to adopt a Western style democracy, which is at the minimalist level of application. And it receives the endorsement of the West because it then favors them in terms of the economic activities they want to engage in the African countries. Then it begs the question, where lies our future? And I think we need to really pay serious attention to that.
This is not a problem with only with ECOWAS. So why don't we have the AU, for example, paying particular attention to this? All the 55 of them, if they agree that this has to be done, or they have a majority, if they have a voting system, and the majority agrees that there will not be third term, this will end the impunity we are seeing, won't it?
I think that it will certainly help. And ECOWAS has the framework. We have the Constitutive Act talking about non-indifference, saying that unlike the OAU period where it was non-interference, where each country had the power to do its own thing without any interference from the OAU, the AU says non-indifference. So in case of any situation where there's violation of the Constitution or where there is instability, insecurity, and so on, then changes will need to take place.
Okay.
And the AU can step in. And it is also clear about suspension of membership in case there is a coup d'etat or that other unconstitutional changes in government. And so the framework has already been laid. And it's just a question of applying it. If you look at the Peace and Security Council protocol, it also recognizes that. And it was funny, for example, when it clearly says that such a state can be, that engages in unconstitutional changes in government, can be, will be punished and sanctions will be applied. Kagame did that, and Kagame was the chairman of the Peace and Security Council at the time. And so it is one thing having the laws in the books, which we seem to flourish, and it seems to be only of academic importance. But in practice, it is not respected. And it's about time we make sure that that the provisions we have in the various provisions, treaties and instruments of the AU are respected. And I think it can go a long way to curb the problem we are facing.
All right.
Another challenge is the issue of recognition of governments. The AU has also not been clear. When recognition of there's a change in government, recognition of government is critical. That you don't just condemn and then remove off the scene the disposed regime. But like what they did in the case of Kaba in Sierra Leone, where even when Kaba was outside the country, they were able to bring in ECOWAS, Kumok to reinstate him. That idea or that practice has not been institutionalized. And so at the end of the day, it is the power blocks within the AU that ultimately makes that decision. And that thing, that issue should be carefully re-examined and changed. For the
my final question to you on this will be whether or not you think certain coups are justified, like this one. Our Constitution, for example, in Article 3.4, justifies, if you like, a counter coup to stop a coup and restore democracy, so to speak, or to prevent a coup. If somebody comes to power through democratic means and then decides to change the Constitution using democratic means, but very questionable democratic means, can't it be said that they are toppling the Constitution and that a counter coup to topple them should be justified?
Yes, and there have been situations where the coup itself could be justified. A coup where all other means for changing government has ceased, where there are serious violations of human rights, where instability is reigning in the country, then a coup d'etat could be justified. And the African Charter on Elections and Governance somehow accepts that position. However, it says that in such a case, the government that came to power through unconstitutional means to overthrow the government that had refused to leave power should not take part in the elections. It should just organize the coup, leave the scene, and allow new elections to be held. That will ensure that democracy is restored. And so by extension, a counter coup to also restore democracy should also be respected.
So what is ECOWAS talking about? In this situation, he was jailing all the people who are against him, who criticized what he was doing in trying to amend the Constitution in the manner he did. And what did ECOWAS do? Now that, you know, he's been toppled and the people are excited. You can see the footages, very excited. You know,
exactly.
I wasn't aware to see the Rollins thing, but I tried to picture how it could be, you know, a similar situation.
Yes, and that is one disconnect between the AU and the people on the ground. And so there is a need to look at popular recognition as well. as well. Popular recognition is not recognition given by states or by international organizations like the AU. It is looking at the situation on the ground. So then the government that is on the ground de facto is in control, and it has the support of the people, and legitimacy is derived from the popular reaction to that coup d'etat, should be taken into account. And so there's a need to consult civil society organizations, even the media and government officials and so on, to see the situation on the ground before it reacts to the coup d'etat. And I think one key thing is the fact that these people that came to power also came to power through unconstitutional means. So they should not be allowed to have an inch or space to entrench themselves in power. So that is the problem with what is happening in Guinea now, and has been the case with all other changes in government through unconstitutional means, especially through coup d'etat. Okay. Because the idea is that we are against the government that was on the ground. We changed it. But at the end of the day, they civilianize themselves and they contest for the elections and they win. In Guinea now, we have all the regimes being headed by military men. And power is sweet, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So the moment they are not ruling by a constitution, they have their own way, and they're able to amass a little money, they begin to enjoy it. And they begin to reconfigure the whole system in a way that now that they enjoy that popular support, people also overlook the fact that legally, the military are not supposed to take political leadership. It is also clear that is stated that the military should be apolitical when it comes to governance issues. And so the people should see them as temporary, just covering a hiatus, temporarily coming to change power, and then leaving space for civilians to take over.
Thank you very much, Prof. Let's now have Professor Dakwa on what she is speaking to talk about. And we are putting up these graphics shortly on your screens so that you can see top 25 countries searching porn hubs. And at the very top, Nigeria, Ghana, and you ask yourself what is going on. Yes, Prof.
Thank you very much. Good morning, listeners. Good morning, fellow panelists. So for me, what was interesting about these statistics is what it suggests about Ghana, right? I don't know exactly how they came up with the figures. They probably looked at numbers of viewings from Ghana.
Right.
And then I'm thinking, did they calculate that based also on our population? Because Ghana is a population of 30 million. Nigeria's population is at least 3 times that. If they did include population size and we come second after Nigeria, then that's quite something. I'm actually far more interested in the Ghanaian responses to our status as number 2 globally. One that really caught my attention was somebody who said, well, basically, if anybody is in Ghana and they search the site, it gets counted as Ghanaian. And it's all the foreigners in Ghana who are busy watching the porno, and then we end up having to bear the brunt of.
How many foreigners in Ghana?
Exactly. But for me, what that says is we don't want to confront the reality. We are embarrassed by the statistics, so embarrassed that we would rather deny the possibility that it exists here. And for me, that's part of our problem. There are many aspects of our lives in Ghana that we feel too embarrassed by and are unwilling to confront and address. And until we recognize this does happen here, this is taking place here, people are watching porno by night and then going about their daily business by day, and probably during the day condemning those who are watching at night. And we have no way of knowing because we are not there with them when they watch it. But if there's that many of us watching, what does that tell us about our sexuality, our sex lives, right? And how does that match up with the conversations we have in public about what we do, who we are in terms of Ghanaian conceptions of appropriate sexual behaviors, and so on and so forth. There are just so many aspects of our lives, especially dealing with matters of sexuality, that we fail to address. And we think the more we stick our heads in the sand like ostriches, the better off we are. Or if we deny it long enough, it will disappear. But that's not how the world works. It does exist. We have to recognize that it does exist and then think about what does this mean for our context? How do we accommodate, address, deal with not just issues of pornography, but many other issues that we find in our country as Ghanaians. And I want to link this up to Lamnatu's point about murders and kidnappings and disappearances of Ghanaian women also. Because in the last year, there have been many incidents of this. And you find that we are not discussing it, taking it on and saying, what's going on here? Similar to what we are doing with the pornography issue, we seem to think if we just let it be, it will somehow disappear. But once it's showing up in our statistics, that tells us that there is a problem here, there is an issue here, and we have to confront it head on. Sticking our heads in the sand doesn't help us one bit.
What does that revelation also tell anybody about what we claim to be? We say we are a religious country. We like to say we are a Christian nation. Of course, we are building a cathedral. And we have just dedicated a mosque. Magnificent. What does that say about us? Actually, there have been some publications that seek to suggest that it is not exactly what it looks. By just clicking on it, you know, it's counted. So it's possible that somebody didn't even watch the porn, but it's counted and so on.
Okay, fair enough. What did you go doing on that site? How did you manage the www.por? And then when you finally got the whole thing, you decided, nah, I'm not watching. For me, I think what this tells us, you know, Ghana actually has the record of having more churches per square meter than any other country in the world. So in terms of going to church, I think we score 100% on that. But for me, it's form over function. Our ability to translate that into Christ-like lives that reflect whichever God we are serving, that's where the problem is. So I say we have to be concerned about not just how many people are going to church, asking people what church you go to, but asking people on Tuesday, so this thing that you are doing right here, what does that tell you? How does that reflect a Christ-like life? One of the things that I'm shocked by increasing in Ghana is things that people manage to tell you. Growing up, I knew stealing was bad. So if I stole something, there was no way I'd be sitting here with you and then during the break, I'll turn to you and say, well, guess what, yesterday. But in Ghana these days, people say things to you and you're thinking, this is not right. How dare you not just do it, but actually tell me about it? And for me, that tells me that there's a disconnect between the Christ, the Allah we are worshiping, and the behaviors we are engaging in. They don't match up. I'll give you another example. In Ghana, we pride ourselves on abstinence is the way to go, and everybody is touting abstinence. So based on that then, given how religious we are, we should all be virgins until we get married. You look at the statistics, and that's not what it says. The age at first marriage is higher than the age at first sex, which means people are having sex long before they get married. It's about a 2-year gap for women, about a 7-year gap for men. This is on the web. Everybody can find it. Just go download the Ghana Demographic and Health Survey and look, right? So this is the reality on the ground. It means when you sit in a church and we are busy speaking abstinence, half of us are not abiding by the abstinence that we are teaching. When you have the youth fellowship and the older people are talking to the younger people, they didn't do what they are saying. Neither are the young people doing what they are saying. But we like the facade of that. And then in that space, all kinds of things are happening then. Because if you're a young person within that space, where there's so much you are not allowed to say, discuss, speak about, and yet it's happening to you, you've got nowhere to turn, nowhere to go. And until we are able to be open and say, yes, abstinence is the best way, but what happens if you get raped? You may believe in abstinence, you want to abstain, but you don't have control over that fully. And you shouldn't have to bear the brunt of that as if you are the one who in Ghanaian language, brought it upon yourself, right? We need to be a lot more open about the reality on the ground, about the nuances in our life experiences. Very few of us have a straight path where everything goes exactly according to plan. You don't teach your child to be wayward. You don't teach your child you have to fail at school. If your child isn't doing well in a certain subject, you have to acknowledge it and work with them to address it, but not pretend as if it doesn't exist. We need to begin to make our behaviors match our religiosity. Currently, I'm afraid that's not the case.
There's a gentleman who has done some work by what he calls a verification process, and he says that it's not exactly what we think it is, and this was published in 2019, and that's what we are talking about. He says that people visiting the sites who are being used to indicate these things, he says what has been done and indicated on the chart reflects the search that is made for a particular kind of content on the website. And this content category is classified as big, beautiful women. So he suggests that that may not be exactly the situation as being painted. So if we see Ghana on the top there after Nigeria, it's not exactly what it looks like. It says the countries captured in the traffic by device chart of 2020 are very similar to the top 20 countries by traffic in the 2019 review report of the pornography website. And then he makes a conclusion that Ghana has not been ranked among the top visitors of pornography website, one particular website, but that the chart that is being used to back this claim only refers to visitors to just one category of videos on the website. I don't know what effect this is.
So the category of big, beautiful women, the big, beautiful women are wearing robes.
Right. Okay. So let's get to Dr. Ako. Yes, what's your issue that you want to review?
Okay, thank you very much, Samson, and good morning to my fellow panelists. Good morning to viewers and listeners. Obviously, during the week under review, politics caught my attention. Of course, the international politics and local politics as well. I'm not a career politician, though. Then I think that the coup in Guinea has been dissected very well. And for me, the only thing is, when Alpha Conde changed the constitution, was it time when ECOWAS leaders should have taken him on and then probably enforced that he handed over power? In doing the enforcement, what do we usually have to do? Is it a case that we need to get military in there and then also ask that he moves away? It's happened at some point, but I'm not too sure. And then we ask the question, is this coup good or bad? In my opinion, there's really no good coup, especially if people have to lose their life in the make of it. However, if you see the overwhelming support that the coup had gained, then I say that obviously the political leaders of the ECOWAS failed the country when Alpha Conde tweaked the constitution to allow himself to stay in power. Starting, of course, the Ghanaian politics also caught my attention as usual. And the commentary on the do or die utterance by former President John Mahama really caught my attention. Indeed, he did mention that in an interview at Akina FM in Techiman. Yes, of course, his detractors have claimed that it was in bad taste and others, and that is where the politics really comes to play. For me, the clarity of thought of somebody wanting to say something is in his head. I mean, I cannot explain what somebody wants to say better than what he intended to say. But again, how you say it is what makes people put a spin or comment about it. And John Mahama has come to explain what he intended to say with the do or die comment in relation to election 2024, which I think is quite far away, and we should even be cautious in beginning to tackle such things. Yes, he was very clear that this do or die comment was an idiomatic expression. And for me, it's clear in my mind, and I understand what an idiomatic expression is. I understand what he meant by do or die. I'll just proceed it with me. When those days we were in secondary school, hoping to go to medical school, would come to say Operation Medical School or suicide, and some people would respond do or die. What did they wanted to say? They said we had to do any and everything that it took to get ourselves into medical school to become doctors. But having said that, why would elite politicians not understand that? It is because it has to do with the seeking of political capital for the purposes that they desire. And in doing that, the opposition party, that is 2NDC, that is NPP, will try to seek that capital, because all the time that is what happens in this country, seeking political capital for such things. So this comes in place of the fact that you'd hear a die in the statement when they came to discuss that why did they say do or die, and then you turn it around and say President Akufo-Addo did mention all die be die. So the equalization then starts from that basis. But something, you see, they are not the same comments as far as I understand. But then, however, you'd understand that President Akufo-Addo is on record as the most vilified politician in Ghanaian history. And who did that? It is the same opposition NDC who did that. So at the least opportunity that the NPP or any other can get to begin this process, they would take it. And this is where my problem is with Ghana.
Are you suggesting that it is okay for the politicians to do what they call propaganda or mislead their followers intentionally? So when it came up and people started talking, I asked myself, maybe my English is not up to scratch. Let me pick up my dictionary. And I've just opened the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and I've gone to synonyms for do or die. It says bent on or upon, bound, decisive, determined, firm, hell-bent on or upon, purposeful, resolute, resolved, set, single-minded. The NPP has done a press conference, and you can clearly tell the language. And there is a great mass of their followers who believe that what former President Mahama said means they are going to foment trouble. There will be violence in the 2024 elections.
Okay, Samson, and I would say that that should not be the case. If that is what he really meant to say, then it is a very poor situation for our country. But importantly, former President Mahama said this has to do with electioneering at the polling station. And for him, he's not ready to go to the Supreme Court. Then I asked myself, why not? He was at the Supreme Court and won one verdict on the same. And the second verdict in 2020 went to another person. Why must he think, or the NDC think, that that verdict was not proper?
Interesting.
So then it goes to say that in totality, the temperature of the political climate in Ghana is very high. And we must be careful about our utterances such that we don't raise the temperature any further, risking an escalation of violence and other things. And my conclusion on this is that former President Mahama is a communication expert, and we must be careful in the choice of words that we make in our discussion in the political climate, lest we risk a situation where our words will be used against us in the future. The debate in the Ghana politics must focus on the substantial issues of the economy. It must focus on how health is provided in the country. It must focus on bread and butter. And let's leave this politics thing to the people who decide who they want to vote for in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ako Tuampao is Medical Director, Eastern Regional Hospital, Koforidua. Now, let's hear the DOSU boss, what she has picked to review.
Okay, so for me, thank you very much, Mr. Sampson. Good morning to you, to my co-panelists, your viewers and listeners. My pick is on COVID-19. I realize, going around, a lot of people are not complying with the protocols. You go to an office, for instance, and you have a group of people sitting in an office, in an air-conditioned office, windows closed, obviously, and people have removed their mask. Some will tell you, oh, I'm protected by God. Of course, who says those of us who put on the masks religiously and social distance and wash our hands, we are not believers in God or Allah or any of our local gods, whichever religion you belong to. So for me, complying with the protocols, washing your hands, social distancing, and putting on your mask is critical. Critical not only for our health, but also the economy. And by extension, gender-based violence or domestic violence. Because what happens is that if we continue the way we are and there is more people are infected, obviously businesses will close down. And when businesses close down, it will affect employment. And employment means that parents will not be able to sustain the homes. And then this will create a potential, or is a potential, for domestic violence within the family setting. So for us to comply with COVID-19 protocols goes beyond, I believe in God, so I am protected. It has to do with helping other homes. Maybe when there's lots of job, probably you think you have money enough to go around, but it's not everybody's. People live by day, when they go to work, what they get is what they use for the day. So if we think only about ourselves and forget about the others, when businesses close down, a lot of people are going to be affected.
That's right.
And as a result of that, we need to have all hands on deck to help the government in its agenda in curbing or ending the pandemic in our country. And then also, I'd also want to encourage people to, especially when you look around, maybe hands off Mr. Sampson, when you go around, take a look. The buckets that they placed in offices and public areas, some of them are not gender friendly. Some put the bucket so low, and so as a woman, we wear skirts. So you're going to wash your hands and you have to bend over. It's a disincentive. I've been to premises where I needed to wash my hands before entering, but I couldn't wash because I am in skirts. The idea that you're not comfortable bending in public to wash your hands would then discourage people. So don't let us discourage people in washing hands. So let's place it in a way that I can stand and wash. A child too can stand and wash his or her hands very well. So that's for me this morning is my short take.
Thank you very much. We take a quick break, and when we return, you will be shocked if you have not already been shocked by the numbers. And I am surprised that it doesn't appear to get the attention that you think it would have received. About 110,000 girls have been impregnated in 2020 only. Over 500,000 girls have been impregnated between 2016 and 2020, according to the GS Ghana Health Service statistics released. How many minors did not report to the hospital? What help are these girls receiving? How many of the violators are being held to account? There are many other aspects of the gender violence or abuse questions that we raise on this platform this morning. We'll be right back.
I wasn't doing well at school, and so I dropped out and decided to learn some apprenticeship. But hunger was killing me. Charlotte is a teenage mother in the Abrasibu-Kwamankase district. She tells a chilling tale of what put her in the situation she finds herself.
And then
I got a guy who told me he would help me. I gave myself to him and he got me pregnant. But I decided to terminate the pregnancy. And thus went to buy a 70 Ghana CD drug to terminate it. I tried and tried, but I couldn't terminate the pregnancy. So I had no option than to give birth, and Team Preg Foundation came to my aid. The struggle for survival. Her colleague, teenage mother, Jennifer, shares her ordeal and why she desperately needs some skills to become independent.
Obi 12 years up to 20 years. Yenyinsa na yembebre ne yenyinsa na yenya aboafo. Ebi wo no ma ye ma me nyipo ye ma me efim. Onya de bia ye mo fama bone nti na ye konyinsa yon. Onam ma ye bezinti.
We are many here, and so we need your support. We are many. Some are 12 years up to 20 years. We all got pregnant, but we had no support. It isn't that we are bad girls. That is why we got pregnant. But what we will eat on a daily basis makes us give ourselves to men. Now we need your support as we have begun learning skills. Some have no parents, and their families don't even mind them. And so survival becomes our only option. And then men take advantage of us and get us pregnant. We need your help. On the streets of Abradunkau, I meet a 40-year-old girl who is just giving birth to her second child. The tales of these girls are endless. They need to eat and be taken care of. It's a matter of survival. Their parents don't have what it takes to take care of them, they say. And these girls desperately need to survive. In the Abrasibu-Kwamankase district, the statistics of not only teenage mothers, but child mothers are disturbing and staggering. It's gradually becoming common for children between the ages of 11 and 13 becoming mothers.
chilling account of a single night stand of 17-year-old junior high school one student that made her to drop out of school.
He wasn't even my boyfriend. He forced me, and that was my first time too. So we tried our best, but she did not accept it. So by now, I'm staying in my father's house, and he's taking good care of me. Everything that I need, he'll give it to me. So by now, God willing, next month, maybe either I can deliver or not by the grace of God.
Ever since she became pregnant 8 months ago, her father has been on the heels on the man to own up the pregnancy and take full responsibility, but he wouldn't budge.
4 months pregnant before I was in the school, but when I got 5 months pregnant, then I left the school. So I came back and I sit at home. Now it's 8 months now. I left school. So the boy that I had him gets pregnant, he told me that he's not the one. So finally my father accepted, and he's helping me to buy everything that I will need for the hospital and the baby's things and everything that we need for the pregnancy now.
Another is a 17-year-old who dropped out of school at junior high school too.
The first time I was in a Form 2 and I got the pregnant. So my parents didn't have money to take care of me, and I got pregnant with one man. So I didn't go to school again.
The duo is part of 100 girls from Isa, Fiang, Bure, and Wogu who dropped out of school. With support from Life Again, a non-governmental organization, they are ready to be back at school, though with more responsibilities. The Upper West Region's Directorate of the Ghana Education Service pegged the number of girls who returned to school pregnant at nearly 700. Juxtaposing figures from the Ghana Health Service, Chief Executive Officer of Life Again, Saudoto Mohammed, kept the numbers in the region higher than the one reported by the Ghana Education Service.
Last year, COVID hit us, and we saw that a lot of girls became pregnant. According to statistics, we have about 110,000 girls between the ages of 10 to 19 years who became pregnant, and most of these girls dropped out of school. In the Upper West region here, we have close to 4,000 girls, and for me, I believe this is even a reduced figure, because these are figures, or these are girls who have visited the facilities, health facilities, and they got recorded by the Ghana Health Service. There are lots of girls in the rural areas who are pregnant or who have given birth within this period, but were not visiting the centers, so they were not recorded.
Her outfit launched a campaign in March this year to support teen mothers with skills training to enable them generate income to take care of themselves and those who wish to go back to school. 100 teen mothers benefited from the program, 20 of whom are being supported to go back to school.
We are all about ensuring that these girls are empowered. And also, we have a number of girls who say they want to go back to school even after giving birth. And we are giving them scholarship, comprehensive scholarship to get back to school. And we have items, we're going to give them school materials to help them to get back to school and stay in school. So it's not a one-time support.
Right. So what you are hearing is not some fiction. It's real. And the reports breaks my heart. We are starting this discussion with the woman who is in charge of the DOFSU. So, yesterday, you gave me a call. I had given you a call on Thursday when I heard a very bad story and was looking for help that you could take charge of it so that there will be some prosecution. And then I got a return call from you. Show our viewers and listeners how these are not isolated issues.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sampson. Issues of teenage pregnancy, and obviously when it's below 16 years, it's defilement, is something that we see almost all the time. It is real. It's not something, it's not a data somebody cooked up from somewhere and decided to put it in the public domain. Almost every day in our premises across the country, we have cases of domestic violence, specifically defilement, since we are talking about defilement where it results in pregnancy. And for instance, the one I spoke to you about involved, unfortunately, in this situation, a father who impregnated the daughter, and as a result, I've had 2 abortions for the lady, 14. The first abortion was when she was 14 years, and the second abortion was when she was 16 years. And these are not cases that are, it's not an isolated case. I remember about 10 years ago, I handled a case where the child was 13 years and she was pregnant. She was defiled, and the court had to give an order, for abortion. And even that, even if she has a right, which she does under the law, to have an abortion because she's been defiled, looking at the size of the child, going through that kind of procedure, it's something that we can't imagine, because this is somebody whose body is still yet to be fully developed. To get pregnant is an issue, and to go further to have an abortion is not something that it's good for the health of the child. So every day we have this, and our statistics show. In fact, if you look at our statistics, we have, for instance, 2016 to 2020, we have 719 for 2016, 790 for 719 for 2016.
So those of you who are watching, look at the figures.
Yes, 719 for 2016, 790 for 2017, 2018, 637. Of course, there was a decrease if you look at the statistics. And then in 2019, it's just shot up to 1,285. And then in 2020, it came down to 1,047. Now, these are the reported cases. So if you look at the cases on pregnant, teenage pregnancy, when you look at the data, you realize that I think for the last 5 years, there was about between 10 to 14, because defilement is below 16 years, so between 10 and 14 years. If you look at the statistics from the Ghana Health Service, it's 13,444, for the last 5 years. So if you put our data together, it shows that a lot more people are not reporting. If you look at what it means, that people, but you see, under the domestic violence law.
Before that, you see something that is happening. The statistics that you have from your department shows that in 2020, please put it back, in 2020, it came down from 1,285 to 1,047. Now, from the Ghana Health Service statistics about the girls who got pregnant and who are under 14.
Exactly.
That's almost 3,000.
Yes.
Then if you take the number who are between 15 to 19, then you have 100,000 plus. So it means there is such a gulf of a gap.
Yes, there is a gap. In fact, what I have, if you look at the, I hope we have the same.
So there are those who have reported to the hospital just so they are taken care of because they got pregnant.
Yes, because they got pregnant.
And then those you have dealt with are those who have reported to police for purposes of prosecution.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then, so when you look at the data here, you realize that a lot more people are not reporting. But then, those who report under the law, the health provider is mandated by the law to report. So anytime a victim of defilement or sexual assault walks to the health service provider, he or she, whoever attends to her, must report to the police. So if the health providers were reporting to us, then it will show, it will get a true reflection of the actual statistics on the ground, at least for those who report to the providers. So we encourage our various health providers. I mean, if you look at Section 6, filing of under the Domestic Violence Act, Section 6, filing of complaints with police. We have different people who can report to the police when they suspect any form of domestic violence and all that. And so health providers are mandated under the law to report to the police on any case of domestic violence, and sexual assault obviously is under the domestic violence. So we encourage service providers, doctors, nurses, health facilities that these children visit, they should kindly report to us. It's just a matter of just getting the contact person of either the DOFSU officer there or the district officer or the divisional commander or the chief inspector at the district and calling the person. You don't need to move. You don't need to go to the police station. Just call the person and say, you know what, we have this case that has been reported. A child 14 years is pregnant. She is at our facility. Then we will come there and then start the process with you. So people don't have to worry that they have to go to the police to do that report.
Let me get to Lamatu. Once again, thank you very much for being with us. From where you are and where you work, how is this situation? I know that in your part of the country, you focus a lot more on early marriages, girls who are being forced to marry under the age that they cannot even consent to sex. But how is the situation where you are, and what do you have to say about what has been revealed?
Thank you, Samson. And like the DOFSU National Coordinator have said, the figures we are seeing, and we think it's alarming, it's on the low. Also because of factors that a lot of them are not being reported. And you and I can understand that in most of our remote communities where there's an issue of accessing even police station is a key one that we cannot ignore. Not to talk about whether the family of a girl who has been raped or has been pregnant have the capacity to travel from a remote community just to make a complaint at a police station is another. It is not new to us, and it is frightening for me. I think that we have a much bigger pandemic that is looming, to us. If we have as young as 10 years girls who are getting pregnant, what does that tell us? That a child is giving birth to a child, and who then takes the responsibility of taking care of the two children. Here in our northern part, a lot of factors we can say can contribute to this. One is the issue of forced betrothed or early marriages, which it's a key thing that bothers us because it's quite deep-seated. It's a traditional and cultural issue that for some families to get married, they have to exchange a girl in their family in order to be married. And that tells you that whether the child has just been given birth earlier or just 9 or 5 years, the child already is betrothed. And once a child is betrothed to a man, it then tells the man that, look, this is your wife, but just that she's still a child. And so there's a cultural issue that we have to look at. Beyond that, if you see clearly in the video, hunger, even getting pad can, push a girl to get a man to waste her, as we have seen. We have done a lot of survey looking at what are the deeper issues that we need to look at. And hunger has come up. A lot of girls will attend school, but then they are not even given one cedi to go and fend for themselves. And so a guy can just quickly lure them. A guy who can be giving her one cedi, she thinks that it is such a person that she must, give in return, whatever it is. And then also, for us who are particular about child marriage issue, clearly pregnancies are a conduit for child marriage. Also because of some of the families who think that it is a shame for a girl not to be pregnant and not to be married and gotten pregnant. And so for a girl who is pregnant, it serves as a conduit for the person to be married. And so we might not necessarily be looking at this figure. There are more to it that we can see. But for me, I want to say that we can blame, some of the issue to the lack of, sectoral collaboration, as we've heard. Because if we put it in such a way that if there's a mechanism that will let the coordination between Ghana Health Service, DOFSU, social welfare, and even SHRAD, such that any case that is reported, whether the person is married or not, once it is below 18 years, we clearly know that it's a right violation. And then we quickly make an attempt for such a person to be arrested. Then there will be motivation, for people to stop child marriage and stop this abuse of girls. But if we don't see it, and it's always a rhetoric that cases are not coming, how are the cases going to come? I'll give you an example, Samson. In West Mampugo, for example, a man has impregnated a woman and has defiled 3 of the woman's children. For me, I think that such a case should not be getting the police or the court adjourning here and there. Because there are multiple counts. Apart from defilement, there are rape cases involved in that. Why should we give bail to such a person? I know that I'm a human rights activist and the person could have right to a bail. But then when there are multiple of such, it's very annoying that people will look at such a man who has committed several of these walking free, because eventually the other systemic issues that I've talked about is going to deny the girl and the woman to be able to, further the case at the court. Because one of the adjournment cases when we witnessed was that the woman was afraid to appear in court. She will be, because as this thing has happened to her, nobody, no counseling, nothing. For a woman to be pregnanted by a man and the same man, violating the rights of 3 other children, and yet no proper counseling has been given to such a woman and girl. Do you think she has the confidence to appear in court? And so eventually, what's going to happen to that case? We're going to have it free. And as much as we are making follow-up to this, we want to say that, look, until we put a very important step to see the issues of sexual and gender-based violence as a priority, we're going to always come back here and ask ourselves, what's the way forward? Intersectorial collaboration is darkening the gender violence in our country.
Okay, so, sincerely, I don't know what I want to say. I'd like to say that this program is brought to you by the kind sponsorship of Bank of Africa, as strong as a group, close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go, Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa, Robert & Sons, Seeing is Believing, Waylead, Home is Where One Start, Star Assurance, your solid partner, Duraplast, where Duraplast goes, water flows, DBS Industries, MG Auto Trading, official distributors of MG vehicles in Ghana, and CBG, we stand with you. My guest on this special edition of Newsfile, you just heard Lamnatu Adam, who is Executive Director, Somtaba, an NGO based in the Northern region. And earlier, you heard Chief Superintendent Owusua Treme, Director of DOFSU. My other guests are Dr. Ako Akotoampao, who is Medical Director, Eastern Regional Hospital. Professor Kwejo Apieje is at the School of Law, University of Ghana. And Professor Akosia K. Dakwa, a sociologist, University of Ghana. So, Professor Dakwa, I'm coming to you now on how you take these statistics. What do they mean to you? How do you interpret them? What do you think we should do with them?
Okay, so I'd like to pick up from where Owusia ended. She made the point that they don't actually scratch the surface in terms of what they get. Because even in terms of the people who are showing up at the hospital, not all of them are reporting at the DOFSU center. So the health services are not collaborating with the police services, a point that Lamnatu made very strongly. But what we are missing is all of those outside of that. So we look at the numbers and we say 500,000 girls over the last 5 years. But if we think about those who didn't report, those numbers are really just scratching the surface. I also want to point out that when we think in terms of the numbers, it's important to keep the bodies behind those numbers in view. When we say 500,000, we mean 500,000 girls across this country. We mean Nayoko in somebody's house. We mean Akosia in somebody's house. We mean Fafali in another person's house. We mean Amina in... These are not just numbers. There are whole bodies behind those numbers. They are living in families. They go about their daily business. This is not just about the girls. It's about all of us. If a child gives birth to a child, she cannot raise that child right. She cannot raise herself right. All of us are the worse off for it. Because with each child, if they grow to their full potential, they benefit not just themselves, but the society as a whole. That 14-year-old who is pregnant could have grown up to become the nano-engineer of the future. All of us will benefit from it. But now, she's trapped as a teen mother, unable to fulfill her full potential. And we need to begin to pay attention to that and ask ourselves, how did we produce an environment where such a thing happens with impunity? People are getting away with murder and turning young women's lives into nothingness, basically. I mean, if you are 14 and you have a child, what are you supposed to do with that? These are people who are supposed to be in Form 3, getting on with their classes, getting on with big dreams of their own. And here we are saddling them. And a lot of what we hear in the media makes it seem as if it's the girls and their faults. But no, it's an indictment on we, the adults. And we've produced an environment where this happens to the young women.
To be frank with you, on our social media page, on my page, some of these comments have come where some are blaming the girls. And what I do is I just delete those. I delete. If you come back the next time with such a comment, I block you. Why will our society want to blame the girl who is a minor, who needs guidance, and may have been taken advantage of or exploited by an adult who is supposed to provide care for her?
So the first thing we need to remember is that you are much more likely to actually be abused by somebody close to you. The likelihood that a complete stranger abused these girls is not impossible, but it's rare. The most likely people to be worried about are the people close to the girl. Older male cousins. We take this for granted. You are leaving home, you leave your 12-year-old routinely with her 15-year-old older cousin, right? That's something we need to be paying attention to. Those who have drivers who are dropping children back and forth, that's something to be watching. The gardener, the quote-unquote houseboy, right? The boy in the neighborhood that the child knows, the teachers in their schools. That's where the problem is. And because we are unwilling to confront that reality, we are unwilling to start taking on our neighbors, our family members, and addressing the issues that produce the teenage pregnancy. We blame it on the young women. That's the easiest thing to do. But part of what we need to begin to do is have an honest conversation with ourselves as the adults in this country and ask ourselves, how is it that we've gotten to this point where family honor is far more important than the girl's life and her ability to lead her life to the fullest. So the first thing a parent or a family member is thinking is, if we go to the police, everybody will know. So let's not go to the police, right? If we go to the courts, it will take a long time. The family will give us 900 cedis. 900 cedis sounds like a lot of money. So you sacrifice the girl for the 900 cedis, right? We need to begin to put the girls at the center of this. We are in an environment where children are not, yes, we talk about, this is a pro-natalist environment. Children are a blessing. But if a child is a blessing to you, it's a responsibility also. And we need to take it fully on as a responsibility and recognize that the children should be at the center of the discussions and not the adults. We don't do that often enough.
And I think just to add to what Prof said, I think children are also blamed because of our history, background, how human rights started. I mean, before then, children were not subjects of human rights. They were seen more of objects of human rights. And as a result, a child was more not to be heard, but to be seen. And a child couldn't talk or ask questions about sex. Because growing up, should you talk about sex, I mean, you will be whipped and not even given food to eat. And so we have come far, we've carried this, even though Ghana, we've come far in terms of the rights for children and all that, people still believe in the fact that if there is sex, it should have been the child who went there. I mean, what did you go there to do? For instance, I remember in a certain situation where a child was defiled, and the first question that came from the mouth of the adult person was, what did you go there to do? Does it really matter what the person went there to do? You know, the law is very clear, especially for children under 16 years. It just doesn't matter. Even if she said, have sex with me, it just doesn't matter, because at that age, consent is void. The child cannot give consent when she's below 16 years. So the issue of what did you go to do? Why must you do? Why did you go there? Why did you even wear this short skirts? Is a non-starter. And so we can move forward if we change our mindsets. If we want to be transformed as a nation,
so
we need to transform how we think.
We will come to the solutions and the bottlenecks, you know, the impediments. There are a lot of them. And people have sent a lot of messages which are questions. And some are telling me real situations, and they are asking what sort of help they can get. Professor PJ, what's the question I asked Professor Akusia Dakwa, what do you make of the statistics? How do you interpret them? What should we do with them as a nation?
Well, the statistics are quite shocking, and it tells a story of the fact that the adults should look ourselves in the faces and accept a big blame for this. The same we're talking about the politics in the West African context where it was to be blamed. I think that it calls for interpreting the statistics as failure on the part of the adult population and also the institutions and systems and mechanisms we've put in place. If we just look at making laws, we would have made huge progress in seeking to address these problems. But law alone does not solve the problem. And so Akosia is there. She will talk about the fact that you have to contextualize the discussion. We have laws on tropocy, we have laws on widowhood rights and so on, but they have not been contextualized in the context of where the cultural understandings of that issue is coming from. And so we need to look at it from two angles. The gender angle as well as from the theory of rights angle. The society has been constructed in such a way that women or even girls in this context are always to be blamed. And so the burden is that the woman is structured or constructed in a certain way. And so at the end of the day, she is seen as a victim. When you look at the cultural underpinnings of discrimination against women, there are sometimes situations where people could not find solutions to some problems which may have a scientific basis for it. And women are blamed for it. And because woman is seen as the responsible, they are not involved in the decision making or to find a solution to the problem. And if you are deemed as the culprit, certainly the laws or the processes that we put in place will work against you. At the same time, we also need to see how the man or the male has been constructed. The man has been constructed as aggressive, as somebody who is supposed to be the breadwinner. And it shows in the way these little girls have been defiled and impregnated. Because the man sees himself as the breadwinner, gives the little girl 1 cedi. And he seems to have fulfilled a responsibility, and there has to be that a favor returned. And the man is seen as the aggressor, and therefore, if he rapes the girl, is seen as normal. And so we need to make sure that we interpret the situations that these girls find themselves in from the angle where they are the victims, and we need to reconfigure and reinterpret the whole gender relations in such a way that we are able to understand where the problem is coming from. And then Madam Dovsu also talks about the fact that children are not seen or are not heard, they are only seen, and so on. And the fact that we need to look at the issue from the rights angle. Yes, for children, for a long time, the argument has been that children don't have rights. But the fact that we have a Child Rights Convention, the fact that Ghana now has an act to protect children's rights, the fact that we have a Juvenile Justice Act, the fact that even the courts have set up some circuit courts identified as child-friendly, gender-related court systems, it indicates that we are no more living in the past ages, but we are in an era and time where rights should be seen as interest-based for children, so that there are some rights which are fundamental or some interests which are so fundamental to them that it should place a duty on multiple stakeholders, the family or the parents, the community, the district assemblies, the police, and many other actors, that they have these responsibilities they owe to the children, the school as well. And then on the other hand, children should also, the rights should be seen as in the context of a will theory, that the children have some will, some concerns that they should be able to allow to articulate, and which should be presented in such a way that society should sit back and listen and take into account their concerns to be able to find solutions or answers to them. And I think if we approach the issue from this angle, it will help us to properly interpret the data that is a failure, institutional failure, failure on the part of the family, failure on the part of the community. And we really need to sit up and do something. It is interesting that there is a huge responsibility even on the health authorities, that if there is a case of defilement reported to you, the person will just come for medical attention. But the law says report the matter. The Whistleblowers Act talks about situations where these issues can also be brought to the fore. So my conclusion is that the law is not working, or we are not allowing the law to work. And sometimes the law is not working because of lack of acceptance of responsibility, shirking of responsibility of the stakeholders involved. And also it's not working because the cultural circumstances have not been properly understood and made us to be part of the whole mechanism of identifying the needs that the children should be placed at the top as critical in the needs of the children.
On the question of the law is not working, I'll return to you on that because I have questions that have been sent in by an aspect of the law that we all may need to pay attention to. Questions of, victims or survivors of domestic violence who need some medical attention, and what the law says that they should get it for free, and yet they have to pay. Let me bring in Dr. Akoto Ampao. Now, I know that, there's a reason you joined the Coalition for Survivors of Domestic Violence, because they identified you, apart from the fact that this is the job you do, you do your practice, and you are also the regional chair of the Ghana Medical Association. The group identified you as one doctor who attends to abused persons in a way that the law requires. So you don't ask for money and all of these things. Now, the people that you attend to who are abused, I want you to look at that against the statistics that we are discussing now. What does it tell you?
Thank you very much, Samson. If I look at the numbers I see as against the numbers that have been put on the show, it's just a drop in the ocean. These numbers put here are very staggering. They are shocking, they are unfortunate, and they are very unacceptable. Even for me, coming from the health perspective, having reviewed some of this data with respect to the names that it was collected from, if I aggregate them as it is now, it is really shocking. And if you take the girls under 15 who are even abused, a whopping 13,000 plus. But something, if everything put together, whatever it is, whatever reasons it is that we give, that we say, okay, it's child marriage, rape, broken home, these numbers are still very high. But I would want us as like health workers to look beyond just the numbers and then have an understanding into what it is that is happening. When I looked at the numbers, really over the 5 years we are discussing, from 2016 to 2020, there has not been any change. There has not been any significance in the increase or significance in the decrease. If somebody said that they have decreased, then it was just by chance, because you need to calculate this based on the total number of pregnancies, then you can understand what really is happening. Or you posit it against the total population of the region in discussion, or even look at the women who are probably in reproductive age, of which you can see what it is. But something more importantly for us, we need to disaggregate the numbers. When we do that, even within the regions and districts, then we can see that in specific areas, the problem is more pervasive than we even think. If I look at the under 15, which is even more problematic for me, 13,000 plus in 5 years of women under 15 have gotten pregnant. And as the doctor would say, this is statutory rape. And based on that, what has happened to these numbers? Would all agree that it's just a fraction of that which we are seeing. We are actually seeing the tip of the pyramid. So what happened to those who did not even report to the hospital for us to report on? Those that have reported to the hospital, what happened to a percentage of them who did not even go to the DOFSU? But those who appeared at DOFSU, how many of them were prosecuted? And those who had prosecution, how many of them were sentenced or jailed. Until we get to put these numbers together to increase it from what it is at the tip of the pyramid right down to the bottom to probably get a square, we really would not be doing justice to this shocking and unacceptable situation of child pregnancies.
Now, those that you see, in terms of examining them, Osua just told us that you have a duty to report to the police if they themselves have not done so. Does this come to you?
Absolutely, Samson. We have a duty of care beyond just what the physical things that we see and treat. And for any health worker, the comprehensive care of the patient is what is very paramount. What happens with the reporting to the police, it's unfortunate sometimes when you even make a report to the police, no action is immediately taken because culturally we have accepted some of those things. But should it be that it's an issue of an allegation of rape, that one, they tend to even begin to work around it. But if a mother has come with a child to the hospital and said the child is pregnant, just on the surface pregnant, how are you going to report that matter to the police? I didn't give an example of a report from hospital to the police, though it is not directly related to this. So this week past, we saw somebody at the hospital who could not pay fees. So from the social workers, it came to my attention that we need to waive the fees of the person. So in reading what it is that they had put together, apparently this person alleged that he was a Nigerian who had been camped by another Nigerian in Ghana, and they tried to escape from the person. So in escaping, they had to scale a wall, and then in jumping, he broke the ankle and was brought to the hospital, and we are treated. He didn't have any money to pay. But listening to the story, it did not add up. So we reported to the police and said, we think this person should be investigated, probably has some criminal things around it. Something, can you believe that it didn't go anywhere? They referred us to another bureau of the police, and they say that he's an adult enough. If that is true, he should report that there is some kidnapping. And it really, I did not understand why it had to be so. So driving the point home, sometimes it is the action that is taken following the report that makes it imperative that some health workers will not consider to pursue the agenda. Of course, obviously for me, I was going to write to the police again, maybe to a higher authority to look into that particular case for me, something.
You're still here on Newsfile, and Newsfile is brought to you by the kind sponsorship of Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. MTN everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Son, seeing is believing. Waylead, home is where one starts. Star Assurance, your solid partner. Duraplus, where Duraplus goes, water flows. DBS Industries and MG Auto Trading, official distributors of MG vehicles in Ghana. CBG, we stand with you. We will take a break here, and when we return, I have your questions, your contributions. Some doctors too have been sending us messages about what they have attended to and some solutions that they require. So we will try and examine the issues even a lot deeper and discuss the solutions. Do they exist? In the absence of the law or in addition to the law, what else is done to survivors of these circumstances. We'll be right back. Yeah, welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. My guest, Professor Akosua Dakwa, sociologist at the University of Ghana. Dr. Ako Akoto-Ampao, Medical Director, Eastern Regional Hospital, Koforidua. He's chairman, Eastern Division of the Ghana Medical Association. He's member Coalition for Survivors of Domestic Violence. He's a public health specialist, epidemiologist, and healthcare management and leadership. Lamnatu Adam is executive director, Songtaba, and Songtaba means help one another or help each other. Chief Superintendent Osua Treme is director of DOFSU. Of course, we also have Professor Kwejo Appiah-Jaitua, who is at the School of Law, University of Ghana. So let's begin to get into the issues of solutions and how effective the solutions are. Now, Professor Akosua Dakwa, what do you know? Because you have done a lot of work in helping abused women, finding shelter for them, and the rest of it. What do you know to be the solutions that exist aside, using the law to punish violators? And how well are we doing in this country?
Okay, so there are a number of ways to think about how we address this. One is prevention, one is protection, right? On the issue of prevention, I really don't think we are doing anywhere near enough. We are burying our heads in the sand. Last year, there was a huge discussion in this country about comprehensive sexuality education. And we kicked against it on the assumption that if we talk about sex, the children will have sex. And then all hell will break loose. The fact of the matter is the sex is being had. So we need to have conversations with both our young men and our young women. Our children need to understand their bodies fully and understand the risks and dangers and be able to talk to adults in their lives when this is happening. If teachers have a comfortable environment that they set up in the classroom, a child can come up to you and say, if my father says this, what does it mean? And you can respond in a non-judgmental manner so that the child feels comfortable. We cannot continue in an environment where if you ask a question about sex, you're a bad person. I am an adult, I'm a parent. This is not a conversation that is necessarily easy to have, but it is one that we need to have. If you are asked, you have to answer the question. You cannot skirt it. You cannot beat about the bush. We need to be having these conversations in our homes, in our schools, in our religious institutions, on radio. Our children need to be educated. They need to know their rights. They need to know and understand their bodies. They need to know and understand where they can go for support if they need the support. So that's what I would say on the prevention. So that's the prevention
side. And earlier, one of our viewers who sent in a message said that this discussion of child and teenage pregnancy should go beyond prosecution and the need to talk about comprehensive sexuality education. Ghanaians were too quick to reject CSE. Girls need to be empowered about their sexual health. This problem is a major bottleneck. If we must address it in a sustainable way, we need to revisit this matter.
Yes, I agree completely. And I hope this will not just be something that gets said here and that's it, but that those of you in the media houses, those of us who have the power to revisit this conversation, we need to come back to it. Our children need education about sexuality. Avoiding it doesn't help our situation.
So protection.
Protection. So we have the state, so I'll leave the states and Usia to speak about what the state does. There's also the NGO community and what they do. So there's Pearl Haven, there's the ARC Foundation. That's for those of us who live in Accra. I have no idea what happens outside of Accra and the numbers of institutions that are supportive. What we have in Accra is nowhere near enough. Our cases are far more than the support systems we have in place.
You're talking about shelter.
I'm talking about shelters. I'm talking about even just a space where you can go and have your voice heard. I mean, when you've been traumatized, you need somebody to hear you out. As somebody who teaches at a university, I can't tell you the number of times. Sometimes you get an email. I've actually had an email once where somebody said to me something along the lines of, this came from a young man. He has this girlfriend. He wants to have sex with her, but she says something. What should he do? And I mean, if I want to figure out who the student is, I could potentially do that, right? But for me, what struck me was this guy, he's probably been trying to ask somebody this for years. And finally decided I may have said something, I don't know. And so for a month, I kept up this conversation with him, right? About rights, perspectives, views, long-term, short-term. And he finally said, thank you very much, madam. I'm going to have a conversation with my girlfriend. And then I let it go. We need to create spaces. And I'm coming back again to in the institutions around us, in our homes. We need to create spaces for people to be able to speak up. We need to offer support. If somebody tells you that they are going through a violent situation, what's your first response, right? Because if there's ARC Foundation and somebody has the number, but when I tell you about my problem, your first act is to tell me to keep quiet. I'm not going to get the protection that the ARC Foundation offers to me. So in addition to the NGOs, I think it's important that we as individuals begin to be a lot more open, a lot more supportive of people who have violent situations that they are experiencing.
I'm appreciating what you're talking about. I have heard of the stories where women, I'm not talking about girls being abused, women who have been abused in their homes and they are seeking help. And unfortunately, where they have gone to seek the help, they are asked to go back home. And that is where they were abused. So these people have to go and live with the abuser. I can't imagine how that works, but that goes on in this country. The shelters, an idea about how many do we have in this country? I have known of ARC Foundation for years. And then recently, the Pearl Haven. Where else?
In our dreams, I suppose, is where the others are. I mean, there is a state shelter, so, and I'll leave Usia to talk about that. But that's it that I know. So maybe there is something else that I don't know. I doubt that very much. But really, that's what we are down to. This is a country of 30 million. Half of us are female, the other half are male. 30 million. And we can count on our fingers the number of safe spaces for people who are being abused. It's not acceptable. There's just no way we should continue like this. It's an embarrassment, actually. When you have to speak about this, you are embarrassed because frankly, it's a joke. We don't take these matters seriously enough. There are too many people who are in distress and have nowhere to go. And it cuts across income groups. This is not just a poor woman's issue, a poor girl's issue. It cuts across entire income groups, the rich, the poor, young, old. We are all facing this. And we just don't have enough facilities to begin to address it. And then within the facilities, it's also important that, I mean, Professor Piejetra was talking about the law. We need the law, but we need to translate the law into action in a way that works. Too many of our survivors are finding themselves victimized by going through the process. It takes too long. So far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure the lawyers do say this, justice delayed is justice denied. If it's going to take me 5 years, if I'm 12 and I was raped, and it's going to take you up to when I was 17 to put the person behind bars, then what's the point? You need to have a sense that if somebody does this to me, they will not get away with it. It's a message not just for the girl in particular, but for those around her to see that this is something that's taken
Dr.
seriously.
Ado has been attending to somebody and wants to have your view on what he can do beyond this. He says, my patient was defiled 10 years ago when she was 13 years. It was not reported at the time. Her menses stopped after the sex, and therefore for the past 10 years, she has not had her menses again today. She has also been collapsing frequently since that time, and that's what brought her to me. I have reported to the police, and they are working to arrest the man. The problem now is how she is to fund her health Medicare. The expensive medications, tests, and scans, since both parents are dead. She's 24 now, but could not learn any trade because of the frequent collapsing. It prevented her. Any help beyond the criminal procedures? Is there any way that she can get any help at all financially?
So what's been happening, and I'll say what I know, not as a state person, is that we take these on. So you are either doing it as an individual woman or a bunch of us get together and we do this. And this is just one story. There are thousands like that. There's the psychological, the mental health issues, right? I also know somebody who is psychologically distressed because she also was raped a number of years ago, right? And she's trying to get past it. She couldn't, I'm the first person she told. She hasn't been able to tell anybody in her family. She needs psychological support. Psychological support should not be free. Those who are trained as clinical psychologists need to be paid for their services. We can count on them to volunteer, but we cannot set up a system that requires their voluntary services. There has to be a system of payments for all of this. And we don't have it in our environment. So if this young woman is going to get help, and I mean, Dr. Akotampa and I can talk offline, but I can't on air point to this is the number you call for the financial services because it just does not exist.
Dr. Akotampa, now there's a revelation here, and I want you to help us to understand this a lot better. So being defiled can actually bring health problems. What we are told here is that she doesn't have her menses again after that event. She got pregnant as a result of that encounter, and the pregnancy was aborted. And interestingly, was aborted by a doctor who also didn't report the offender. What are some of the implications of some of these things? For example, Chief Oswa has told us the story of this girl who was, defiled at 14, and then when she was 16, and has aborted twice. Now, I was following that story, and what was rather sad to me was that this father was having a debate with the girl as to the number of times they had had an affair. The girl had a number in her mind, and she was pointing to that number, and the father was talking about a lesser number. And even that lesser number is like a dozen times, and I don't get it. What are the implications that people can suffer? I'm thinking about this girl. She grows 20, 24. How does she even get to, have a good relationship, so to speak?
Thank you, Samson. On the parents with the debate, my question is this father in jail? If it's not, then the system has failed us. Because if you are arguing about the number, then it presupposes that you've accepted that you did do something. And for that matter, I mean, the law should take its course. But Samson, before I go to the effect, I would agree with Professor on the need for the shelter and other things. I've had situations where some of these victims had come to the hospital and they tell you, doctor, if I go back home, it's going to happen again. You are talking about shelter for Accra, Act Foundation, and the rest. What about beyond Accra? And in such instances, I have no option than to admit such people to the hospital, at least for that night, whilst we take steps to look at those. So the shelter part of it is very important. And by how long can you admit a person to give shelter just for the night or others? Something to the substantive issue of the effect of these actions on the women, it can be very bad to them. And it ranges from psychological, emotional, to the physical things that we are talking about, the physical thing on the body. So for the psychological effect, you and I would agree that these people would never tune themselves well to become compliant to society. And emotional, you'd see them withdrawn and thinking about all other things, which would even have an effect on their physical being. As for the physical aspect of it, you can talk about the trauma in the process. Not forgetting the STI, the sexually transmitted infections and STDs, diseases that would occur. And particularly, you should be thinking about HIV/AIDS. These perpetrators of this action are quite reckless to the extent that to say that the women are pregnant just goes to say it was unprotected sex. And for any unprotected sex, there's exposure to these sexually transmitted diseases. Then come the complications of pregnancy. They become pregnant, and this is a child who cannot take a pregnancy to the end. What happens during the process of childbirth? Their womb are not ready for such babies. Their pelvis or the outlet of where the baby would pass is not ready because they are children. If God is gracious to them and they have a child, then they are burdened with the risk of taking care of a child. And all these things are things that cannot be acceptable. But Samson, on the woman who, after 10 years of this heinous action on her, and she's not had her period, yes, there could be many reasons as to why that may be. What I can say for now is that we'll recommend that she consults a doctor so that we can look into the process. It may be related, it may not be related. So it's not so quick to jump to it and say that that is exactly what it is that has caused her not to be having a menses. But you can be sure that even the thought of it, the brain is so powerful that the constant thinking of the process that she's gone through can inhibit the hormones that must be released so that her womb can have these cycles that would allow her menstruation to come on and then come off at regular times.
Okay. The good news at this moment is that, Dr. Ado, I'll get in touch with you, my production team, because the ACT Foundation just got in touch and they are ready to provide some help to their extent of their ability to your patients. So we say thank you to ACT Foundation. And this is the ACT Foundation that not too long ago was actually suffering to be able to mobilize the little monies that it needed to keep the shelter going. This is a shelter, I understand, may not take up to 30 people. And the people who manage to get to the shelter, sometimes it becomes difficult. They don't have anywhere else to go. They turn that place a permanent home. Before I come to you, people are sending questions about the DV fund, the Domestic Violence Support, Victim Support Fund. Some are asking what is the status, does it exist at all? Is there money in it? What is going on? But let me bring Professor PJ on the other question that many people have brought. The number of questions, I was trying to put them together before I asked this question, but that would take me a bit of a time. They're asking about what we know. The Hospitals Fees Act says if someone goes through this situation and they need help, the examination, medical examination that should be done free of charge. Then the Domestic Violence Act also says the same thing, that the medical examination or treatment that they require should be done free of charge. And prosecutors also need this examination to get, good convictions. Unfortunately, because they can't pay, they are being asked to pay. Dr. Kotampa will explain to us why the Ghana Medical Association appears to have a schedule of fees asking people to pay when the law says they shouldn't pay. Prof, what will be your response to that? And how do we resolve it?
Thank you. The question is about application of the law. And the application of the law always lags behind, especially when we are dealing with the subject matter we are discussing now. And it makes it very unfortunate then how we consider ourselves as really serious in dealing with this serious matter of sex and gender-based violence. And so the Domestic Violence Act, for example, talks about the setting up of a fund. And part of this fund, among others, is to, of course, the government is supposed to be the main source of funding for this fund, but also to solicit funding from corporate bodies and so on, and private individuals and others. But according to some information I gathered, the initial seed money of about 50,000 cedis is all that the government has provided so far. So it doesn't tell of a seriousness on the part of the government.
And what you are talking about is how many years ago, after Martin Kpebu has gone to the court to compel the state to set up the fund, the board, because it didn't exist, even though the law said it should be set up. And the law was done, was it 2007? And nothing had happened.
Yes. So that is the situation we have on our hands. And about the Hospital Fees Act, I also have a problem with why it's not being complied with. And probably Dr. Kotampa can shed some light why the hospitals still charge the fees, because it is certainly a major disincentive for people who have been abused to be able to access services which will enable the police to get the critical evidence they need to prosecute. And so I think we need to look at it from that angle as well.
So I'm looking at the terms of the laws and the Domestic Violence Act. I'm looking at Section 8, subsection 3, which uses the words that the victim, quote, is entitled to free medical treatment from the state, unquote.
Exactly.
How clear can it be? How can this be violated? How is it possible to ignore this, Prof? You say the laws, we are not making the laws to work, but tell me how this happens, because this law is not it's not ambiguous at all. Yes, Dr. Aktampao, can you tell us why? I was going to say you guys, but I know that you don't charge. Can you tell us why?
No, it's not. I think
why the doctors charge when the law says you should not charge?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Samson. Yes. It is good to see you guys, but then, I mean, would accept it. Well, the substantive issue is that healthcare is expensive anywhere in the world, and healthcare in Ghana is equally expensive, if not more expensive. Would agree that these victims need some level of care. The question remains, who pays for the care? Government upon government have paid lip services to care of patients in any and almost every disease that you could think of that is of public health importance, and then said it should not be paid for. But the same government do not pay for it. I'm not digressing, but I mean, to talk even about this recent matters that we are talking about, COVID. Hospitals have bills upon bills that they are incurring in the name of COVID to be submitted for government to pay, but they are not being paid for. So that is where lies the problem, why there's a blatant violation of the law. Because if you bring somebody who is hurt out of the rape or abuse, and you expect the hospital to take care of that person, would use resources, would use medicines, and who would pay for these medicines? A lot of the time, the doctors also focus on the holistic care of the patient, and that is where sometimes you have the delay in signing the medical forms that are equally important in prosecution of this patient. Yes, it is true that the Ghana Medical Association has come out with fee schedule for signing of this medical forms. Yes, I mean, they need this money to be able to take care of themselves in the event that when they go to court, they would speak to the issue. When these matters end up in court, these doctors will need to fuel their vehicle and go there. A lot of the time, the institutions will be asked that, can you provide that fuel? But many of them are not able to provide the fuel or even resources for them. And that is where you have this schedule of fees that have come in. The schedule of fees has a range, and it is not, I mean, to say that it is fixed, depending on the economic situation in which you find yourself. I must agree that they are prohibitive, especially for poor people who tend to be the victims. And for that matter, a lot of the time, some doctors use their discretion to decide that I don't think it's worth it to burden this family or this girl with fees when they are going through this trauma. But something, the most important thing is that government must take the bold step to provide a fund for it. And if you look at the Domestic Violence Fund, as Prof was saying, it's only had a seed capital of 50,000 Ghana cedis. What is 50,000 Ghana cedis going to do for even one rape victim? Just like I've described all the different scenarios that happen with respect to the care of that victim. So a lot more must be done. And I say that with respect to healthcare and this issues of fees and charges, government must put their monies where their mouth is, such that they should be able to fund this issues that they talk about.
Dr. Tampa. Yeah, Dr. Tampa. Quickly on this. If the physician who is attending to the survivor of the domestic violence or the abused is in a government hospital, who is taking the fee? I want to understand. Is it the government that's taking the fee or the medical practitioner?
Okay, by our schedule of fees, it is the practitioner who is to take the fee, so that in the event that he's called to appear at the court of law and speak to the matters that he has written about the report, that money could be made for fuel and it could take care of his being out of the hospital depending on where he has to go. Something, our position is that because government always says that these things are free but does not provide the funds for it, most doctors shy away from signing such reports. And then you see that, okay, if you say that nothing should be taken, the facilities also do not provide that transport or that money for fuel and for their care when they go out of station, then it becomes problematic to get as many doctors to respond and sign this document as often as needed.
So the money that is taking, we understand sometimes 200, 500. There's a situation somebody mentioned that they were being asked to pay over 1,000, 2,000 or so. The money that is taking is not for the medical examination, but in expectation that the doctor who has done this work may be invited to the court to speak to the report. Is that the case?
Absolutely, Samson.
Okay. Professor PJ, let me come back to you again because it's important that as we just looked at Section 8 of the Domestic Violence Act, which says the victims are entitled, it uses entitled to the medical examination free of charge. Then in the Hospitals Fees Act, Section 3(1) says it's about exemptions. It says no fees shall be paid in respect of any medical examination or report required by any department of state or in connection with the official duties of any employee of a department, so on and so forth. So if the victim or the survivor goes to the police is looking for evidence to help in the prosecution. The law says they shouldn't pay. You have heard what Doc just said. How do you resolve this?
I think it can be resolved by looking at having a discussion with the Ghana Medical Association, because until today I didn't know that it's covered non-medical issues. And so I think that there can be a situation where if the medical costs are covered, then there can be an arrangement where the Ghana Medical Association may also on its own, maybe as a support to the fight against gender violence, can get some fund set up that may be able to support such an endeavor. And I think that we may also want to look at probably the government itself seeing that this problem is a problem that exists. And generally, we need the doctor in the courtroom to be able to speak to the facts, the examination that he or she did. So government should, in having discussions with the doctors about their fees and allowances, can factor that in. I think it's crucial, it's critical. And until that is done, the fight against gender-based violence will be stalled.
But again, Prof, yes, if you were invited, the doctor is invited to the court, they are going as a witness, not so?
Yes.
The court, there is fees that are given to stipend or so, allowance that are given to witnesses like that. So something is wrong somewhere.
Yes, there's something wrong somewhere, definitely. But of course, we need to take into account the fact that that fee is also very minimal. And probably the doctors feel that it is not enough. Even if you're looking at the fact that we have to pay 500 or so, it will still not be enough, because the doctor may calculate the number of hours he has to go to court, or the number of times that he or she will have to go to court, and other factors. So certainly the amount is not enough. And I think there should be an arrangement where this is covered by the government. I think it's the government's responsibility. And if the government is serious about the domestic violence fund, it can be another source where money is put in there specifically to deal with such matters, because the fund talks about different areas where the money can be used for. Typically, there should be some money reserved for this. Then we also need to look at the fees that are paid for witnesses, that it also needs to be increased or reviewed depending on who is going out to give the witness. Because if you want a medical doctor who, if he goes on locum, could earn so much, spending the time in court, may go to court, the case adjourned and all that, then certainly there's no incentive for the doctor to go. But I guess we also need to look at the fact that there are some doctors who do this for free, and it should be one way where maybe a doctor will say, for every year, I'm going to support this cause, that for 2 or 3 people in a year whose cases come to me, I'm going to do it for free.
But Prof, you know the court system. He's going to do it for free, and then he goes to court, cases adjourned, and like Professor Akosua Dakwa just spoke about, if you are going to have to go to court for a year or 2 before a small matter like this, or a matter that is so straightforward, can be concluded, then what's the point?
Yes, you're right. So at the end of the day, we come back to the law. The law says the person is entitled to. So I think we also need to examine that. And probably, apart from all that I've said, also look at whether we can subject that to interpretation by the courts, or even go to SHRAJ for some understanding of this, so that we can be clear as to who should bear the burden. So it shouldn't be on the victim. The victim is already traumatized. The victim is already victimized. And there shouldn't be another way that should be a stumbling block to the person having justice held on his or her behalf. In this case, most often a female. Yeah, so I think that there's the need to review this particular provision and the requirement, and then to ensure that the provision in the Domestic Violence Act is also giving some interpretation, and we come to understanding here.
How should we be interpreting a law that says, quote, is entitled to free medical treatment from the state, unquote?
No, that's what I'm saying, that the law is clear on it. But here's a case where the doctors are saying that it is not about the medical part of it. It's just the non-medical part of it, going to court. And then when you go to the court aspect to the court says witnesses are supposed to be paid some money, but the doctors are not being paid enough. So there has to be a way of resolving that matter. And for that matter, if we stick to the Domestic Law Provisional Law and then the Hospital Fees Act, it may not help us.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And I'm coming to Chief Superintendent Usua, and then Lamatu Adam also is on Zoom. But we'll take a quick break and return. There are questions coming to you on the part of the state you know, Professor Kuseleka also actually left some part of that to you to answer. What support is there beyond questions of prosecution? They are asking about the Domestic Violence Fund, Victim Support Fund. Where is it now? What is the state? All right, we'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis platform. Yakubu Ibn Chambers is sending this message and says that let the authorities do everything possible to help victims of domestic violence rise from the depth of unbearable despair. Confronting the darkness of gender violence requires a hydra-headed approach from multifactorial angles. It is not as simple as we think. When the impunity happens, authorities must find opportunities for victims and punish perpetrators. It must be treated as a pestilence because the statistics are chilling. Yakubu Ibn Chambers sent in that one. Erastus Donko, you know him, he says that 2 years after I did a report on child prostitution in Kumasi, I went back last week and the numbers are rising. Children from as low as 10 years old. The areas include the Safo area, popular places. But now he says he's seeing some at Plaza, Dichemso and Abinchi. Okay, I'm familiar with these places. The guys here, some were telling me if we're aware of the immediate environment here, circle areas, small girls just begging men for 5 cedis, 10 cedis, offering themselves. That's very disheartening. Now, this is from Ochre Dako Ubuntu. He says, another thing government can do is to make the offense of rape triable summarily. As it stands now, rape is a first-degree felony and it occasions delay in the prosecution of such cases. Second degree, I suppose, right? Okay. Collins Little Tete says rape culture allows sexual violence to be normalized and justified, fueled by the persistent gender inequalities and attitudes about gender and sexuality. Naming is the first step to dismantle rape culture. Biases that permit rape culture should not continue. MD Eshrain says, I think there should be a live recording of hospital transactions, and these transactions should be tagged. Okay, the tags will trigger an automatic report to the police when it is one which has been flagged by police. The transactions will have the details of the patient. Emmanuel Ejebequin says, I agree with Professor Akosia. We are so embarrassed by the statistics regarding the porn thing and tend to be dismissive, giving funny defenses. How do we even juxtapose those stats over our religious nature as Ghanaians? The religious hypocrisy is nauseating. Akwezua T, is that your name? Okay, Akwezua T says that it's pathetic to see as young as 12 years old pregnant and okay, they are about to deliver. If you ask this girl what happened, she says she was raped. Okay. Then you ask the mom, why didn't you report to the police? She says she wasn't raped, but consensual. Okay, so that's part of the problem we have to deal with, you are saying. Right. The Vodafone helpline just reach out to us and to let us, let Dr. Edward Addo understand that your patient has help. So they are going to take full responsibility and help your patients. So we have ACT Foundation and Vodafone helpline coming through. These are questions being asked. What help is available for survivors?
Okay, thank you very much. When it comes to addressing issues of domestic violence, you need more than one agency or institution to do that. And so for police, what we do is that we do the criminal aspects in terms of investigations and prosecution. And then we reach out to other institutions who are able to provide the necessary assistance. So we reach out to counselors, the hospital, we reach out to NGOs who have shelters or who can provide some funding for us to book a guest house or a place of safety for these people. So beyond us, we are able to reach out to other institutions. Now, the issue of, we realize that, for instance, when it comes to rescue, it becomes difficult for us. Or sometimes when the victim herself or survivor herself is able to reach us on our premises, it becomes an issue as to where to even put the person. Because you don't have, state shelters around. We depend on NGOs, sometimes as late as 9 p.m. So what we've decided to do, the police administration decision going forward, and even currently, is that we've set up our own temporary shelter within our one-stop center. So now this one-stop center is indeed truly a one-stop center, and I invite all of you, the panelists, to pay a visit and have a look at the place. It's truly one-stop center where the survivor enters and everything the survivor needs is in that building.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean, everything. What therefore I mean is that the person is going to receive medical care. So the issue of paying fees, endorsement fees, and all that.
You have a hospital within it?
Yes, in fact, we just set up the clinic yesterday. The consultant came to set it up. Now we have some money to start the lab. We're going to have a lab, and the lab will do a lot of things. It will include forensic. It would include DNA testing, COVID testing, because when you need to rescue, after rescue, you need to put somebody in a shelter. You need to be sure the status. And then for also the normal basic lab, when you go to the hospital, you need to do. We have 2 courts. For the first time in our history, we have courts on police premises. So in that building, when your case is done, or we have cases from other police areas in relation to GBV or domestic violence, you come to that court because it's going to be a domestic violence.
So you have 2 courts?
2 courts, district courts and a circuit court.
Okay.
And judges will be there. It's not like they come on maybe days, but it will be the 5 days that judges sit, Monday to Friday, the court will run. We have also a place where we interview children. It's child-friendly. It's been designed mainly to interview children. And it is such that we also would avoid secondary victimization, which it's what it is now, is that when you move from police to, let's say, the hospital, you have to repeat your story. From the hospital to social welfare, you have to repeat your story. Now we've set up a system.
That's what you call secondary victimization.
Secondary victimization.
Okay.
So now we've set up the system in a way that as you are interviewing the child or the adults, the doctor sitting in his clinic, in his office, within that same building, is able to monitor the conversation. He will then take the history, so that when the child or the adult comes to the doctor in his office, the doctor, all that the doctor needs to do will be to introduce himself and say, I am Dr. Blah Blah, and this is what I'm going to do with your body, so that you don't have to repeat the story. So we also have counselors on site, we have social workers on site, we also have lawyers on site, so that some of the issues, there are civil aspects, legal aspects that they need some service of a civil lawyer to take up. So we have lawyers there to look at the civil aspects of it, while we also deal with the criminal aspect. And then we have, our court is a child-friendly court. So the child has a waiting area, waiting to give evidence.
This is your initiative.
Yes.
As the police.
Yes.
DOFSU.
Yes. Yes.
This is just Accra you're talking about.
Yes. So we have rolled out a plan to go beyond Accra, and not just the regional centers, but also down to the division, the district level. There are strategies, but of course we need help from the general public, because to put this together, it's capital intensive, but
so
of
when
course,
you say help, you mean finance?
Finance,
okay.
Yes. We need funding. So we've been going out for fundraising, reaching out to individuals, corporate world, and all that to come on board. And in fact, we have visitors coming from other countries to look at it. And ours is the most unique and the biggest in Africa.
This is very new.
Very new. It has not been commissioned.
Okay.
But of course, people have heard about it and people have started coming in. So we started receiving cases, but we are yet to land it. And then we have a helpline center within that building.
Right.
And the helpline center is such that when you call, we are able to connect you to the appropriate personnel that you need.
So you say you are going to try to replicate this?
Yes, there are plans to do same. We are going to start, once Accra is commissioned, we'll move to another region and start the same structure there, and then we move on. There are strategies to see if...
But like you said, you are depending on people's benevolence to do this.
Exactly.
So it depends on what comes in.
Yes, it depends on what comes in. But at the same time, with time, I'm sure the administration will pick it up and also see how internally they can also assist in terms of funding.
Vodafone Helpline, who just came to the aid of Dr. Ado's, patient, I'm sure that corporates like that are watching, they are listening.
Yes.
The MTN Foundation and the rest of them can reach out.
In fact, just quickly, just to mention, in fact, we have those who contributed so far. We have the Australian High Commission supported us, and then we have Casa Precon also came in to support us. We have Latter-day Saints, we have individuals. UNICEF also came on board to do the child-friendly courts. They funded the whole court. So we have donors and other companies.
Yeah, the Domestic Violence Victim Support Fund. So, of course, we were supposed to have the gender minister on this show to assist us to give some direct answers to some of the issues that have come up, because they are within her jurisdiction. And somehow she's unable to join us. Don't know why. But in 2011, when the board was set up and the fund started to operate, the seed money, 50,000, from my understanding, is that 50,000 is long depleted. So what's happening to it?
Honestly, I'm unable to speak to the DV fund. I'm sure the best person to speak to, or it should be a rep from the Ministry of Gender. I know it's been set up and people can assess. For instance, the lady who talked about, who was defiled at age 13 and currently has issues, could reach out to the Ministry of Gender and see if there is something that they can get for her.
Forgive me. Lamnatu, what would you like to say finally in respect of solutions? In some 1 minute, 30 seconds, what can you say?
Thank you, Samson. Probably I want to say that we need to have this conversation again. But then, not just here, we may have to create other spaces for citizens to get engaged. Like I think one of the contributions we had, this is multifaceted. We need to bring on board traditional authorities. And I think that we shouldn't forget of the child and family welfare policy, which entrusts the protection of the child into adult and other structures within the community. For me, I think that I wanted to hear more about the DV fund because all of this will get a response through the DV fund where victims can get support. But I would like to also call on the Ghana Medical Association to try and waive these charges. Listening to Dr. today, just knowing that it's just about attending to court. That's why, they should try and waive it. Because looking at the situation of this vulnerable person who has been defiled or who is hurt, and for the person to go and again to to pay this charge, it means a lot. I think they should just see it as part of philanthropy. They should. I think I've seen that some other people are doing it.
Right.
And for the DV
how
unit,
time
I
flies.
think that they should look at other ways to get funding to support them.
Well,
and government should look at the COVID fund. Something, allow me to say that the COVID fund should be used to support these girls, because we're trying to get them go back to school, like the GS re-entry policy, but a number of them want to learn a skill, and there's so much burden of having to take care of the children.
Thank you so very much. We hope that the duty bearers have been watching, they have been listening, and they have taken notes accordingly. How time flies. I was hoping we could come to you all to give us just a word to conclude, but time just ran out. Thank you all so very much. Professor Kojo Appiaje is at the School of Law, University of Ghana. Professor Akosua Dakwah, a sociologist, also at the University of Ghana. Dr. Ako Akoto-Ampao is a medical director at Eastern Regional Hospital. Lamnatu Adam is executive director, Sontaba, an NGO in the Northern Region, and Chief Superintendent Owusu Treme is director of DOFSU. My outfit, as always, is by Havel's Couture. They are at Adringano Gate, East Legon. You can call them 0200 84 1988. 0200 84 1988. Thank you so very much. Have a good afternoon.